your life. You got this. Go chase it, live your life. Enlighten you. Let the light shine through. Light. Enlighten you. Just see it through.
I'm Melissa Thrasher.
And I'm Lolita Cummings.
Welcome to Enlighten U, EMU's award-winning mental health podcast for students. Today's guest is a real treat for us, and he will be for you as well. Dr. Brendan Kelly is someone who knows his campus from multiple perspectives. As a former student, a national forensics champion, a leader in higher education, and now EMU's newly appointed 24th president. And more personally, he is also a former student of our host, which makes this conversation even more meaningful.
I cannot wait to get into this. In this episode, we'll talk with Dr. Kelly about his journey from student to university president, the mental health challenges he faced while in college, and how those experiences shaped his leadership. We'll also explore the mental health initiatives he championed while serving as president at other universities, as well as some plans that he may have for us here at Eastern Michigan University. Finally, we'll ask him to explore how leaders at the highest levels manage their own well-being while supporting the well-being of an entire campus community. So stay with us for an honest and insightful conversation about leadership, vulnerability, and the importance of prioritizing mental health in higher education. Dr. Brendan Kelly, welcome to Enlighten U. This is a show we've been waiting for, and I can't stop smiling. EMU President, Dr. Brendan Kelly. Welcome to Enlighten U. Thank you so much for coming. When I asked you, let me tell you all about this guy. When I asked him if he would come on the show, you never hesitated. When I asked you if he would fund the show for another season, you didn't hesitate. What you told me is that everything that you're doing for the students. And I cannot tell you how we feel that energy on campus, how the students are talking about it, and how grateful we are that you're here. So thank you so much for being here.
My privilege and honor.
You and all your glory. I haven't seen, you and I came on campus the same year in 1994.
That's right.
Right? I came as a professor, you came as a student.
That's right.
I'm still a professor, look at you. Look at you.
I'm still a student in many dimensions.
You're like Professor Cummings about today.
Yes.
But you were the #1 speaker in the country when you were here. You met your lovely wife, Dr. Thrasher, when you were here. And then you went on to lead other universities in the South, around the country. Tell us what you've been up to and how it feels to be back.
Holy smokes, that's a big question. One, it's great to be back. And what an honor this is right here. It's I talk about you a lot. I have for years and years and years with students that I've been in service to. So sitting back here is special. All right, so what have we been up to? Well, we left 22 years ago to go to the University of West Florida in Pensacola. Tress and I went down there as faculty members. I was director of forensics, having just finished my service as assistant director of forensics here. And while I can walk through kind of the history of all of those things, I'll tell you what we discovered right then, because that was a place where we got to cut our teeth on a lot of things. And that was the place where I learned that it wasn't about us. It was about them. And I say that, you know, in my first week as a faculty member there, I came in with a ton of assumptions because we were coming from, you know, the Detroit metro area. It was going down to Pensacola, Florida, which was not that big at the time. It's more robust now, more well-known, but it was just a little Navy-based town that just happens to be located on the beach. But I walked into my first class and I asked the students, I'm making the assumption that we're at a regional comprehensive university. All of these students are probably from this region, which was Northwest Florida. And I, of course, have a lot to teach them, having come from a metropolitan area. So I said, well, how many of you have lived anywhere else other than Pensacola or Northwest Florida? And about 2/3 of the hands in the class went up. Wow. And I went, wow, okay, so assumption broken. And I said, well, I picked one young man out, Jacob Boone. I said, where was the last place you lived? And he said, the last place, Prague.
Wow, my.
Because all of them were military affiliates. They had lived all over the world. They had lived in cities that I hadn't lived in. And I went, who am I? It was fascinating how all of a sudden we got to learn from each other. And philosophically, over those years, we just got to see, gosh, we could do this really well if we just focus on what they need and customizing it around them. And then after a few jobs at that university, we got to carry that into presidencies in South Carolina and Georgia and Arkansas, where I got the opportunity to oversee multiple institutions before the opportunity to come back here came about.
Coming home.
Unbelievable.
Welcome. Yeah,
Unbelievable.
welcome.
Because this work is hard, because higher education is really hard right now. And if we're going to do work that's that hard, let's serve the place that we love most and the students that you want to be in service to most.
Yeah.
I hope that answers the
It
question.
absolutely does. And please know that I have spoken about you numerous
Yeah,
times
she
in classes
has.
over the years.
Yeah.
A superstar student and my homie from Flint.
Yes, ma'am.
So we've talked, we've had those conversations about
right.
you, and we have followed your career throughout the years, and I just could not be more proud of you.
Thank you.
And I'm so glad you came back.
Thank you.
So glad you came back.
So should I address you as homie? Is that okay? Or
You're
President
not from
Kelly?
Flint.
Oh, I don't get the pass. I don't get the pass. Okay. I love that you said we're all in this together. We're all going to learn from each other. And that means a lot. I feel inspired by you, and I just cannot wait to see all the things that you do for the university. So I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. So the next question, I know that you got your public relations degree in 1998, and then you received your master's in communications in 2000. So after that, what was life like as a doctoral student and then as a university leader?
So when I went on for my doctorate, Tressa had, I think I started classes and she was finishing her dissertation, or maybe she was finishing her dissertation in that last year. But our experiences were quite different. She was a full-time doctoral student. We had a child the day I started. All right. So we had our oldest child, Bree, our daughter, and then before I finished, we had our second child, our son, Liam. And I was working full-time as a faculty member, and we were commuting, and it was quite different, right? Quite different. So what was life like? Chaos. And that's before we added our third, Kieran. and we waited for Florida for that. But it took a lot. It took a lot to finish. Some of the circumstances around that were particularly challenging, especially after we moved to Florida, because I finished my doctorate when we were in Florida, and we had been hit by a major hurricane and made life very complicated. But I also learned that probably during the time when we first went to Pensacola, we moved on July 22nd in 2004. I was a few days ahead of Tressa and the kids. I opened the door in the driveway of our new house that we had just purchased on July 22nd, 2004, coming from Michigan to Florida. And the wave of heat and humidity that just overtook me, I just went, I've made a huge mistake. My family's going to hate me. And obviously they accepted that. But 6 weeks later, we got hurt by Hurricane Ivan. University shut down for 4 or 5 weeks. We didn't have power at our house for 4 or 5 weeks. It was like nothing I had ever experienced before. We discovered really fast that everything is pretty fragile.
Yeah.
And that we are supposed to make sure that we're putting all of our time and effort into strengthening the support systems around that fragility. When we came back from that, it was like only the important stuff was engaged in. Only the important conversations were happening. Only the important interactions. Because everybody had lost a lot of things. Not just us, like everybody had lost a lot. That taught us a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we came back from that. And everybody came back better. And the city came back better. And that was a discovery too, especially for people from Flint.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
things can come back better.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you get punched in the face.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the old adage. It's everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face.
Exactly.
And sometimes you get punched in the face multiple days in a row, but we're still here. So it built up a resilience that, we were lucky enough to get invited to lead universities. Maybe that was at a time when we needed more resilience than higher ed had ever needed before, and that's been the case throughout the course of my leadership career. But that's where we're at now, too. It's you wake up every day, and we try to invest ourselves, hopefully all of us, not just the Kellys, in what's the work that matters most? What are the people that matter most? Let's focus on that, and then everything else goes to the stop doing list. And that's okay too, because that was pretty freeing when we realized, hey, all of these things that we thought were really important are now destroyed. So
Yeah, material things.
how important were they?
Right, exactly. And you can always get that back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question about that. We had an earlier conversation, and you talked about forced renovation as a result of the hurricane, right? Because everything was destroyed, and so you had to reinvent. Right now, coming to the university, higher education isn't what it was in '94 when you and I started at this place.
Oh, you bet.
There's going to have to be some forced renovation. Any idea what some of that might be? Now, I know some of your strategy because I know you've talked to over 1,000 students and maybe 2,000 since you've been here, right?
I spend a considerable amount of time talking to the people that we are serving.
Who matter, right?
Absolutely. Lots of people matter. But our job, all of the work that we do has to be in service to those individuals because they've got one shot. So you don't get to relive all of this. Life doesn't have a dress rehearsal. So I go, if we're going to do higher education, we're going to make sure that experience is as rich as possible at every turn. And that's going to be extra effort on our part, and it should be more intuitive for students and simpler for students. But what does forced renovation look like? The rules of the game have changed. Costs of higher education have been shifted around over decades, where now it is much more of a consumer-centric experience. And we're going to have to lean into the fact that is true. Therefore, the way in which they're receiving higher education is much more of a concern for us today than it was in 1994. When we talk about support systems for students, those support systems are both physically and mentally and in terms of wellness. Those are now essential pieces of public universities in America, as opposed to these niche services that we used to have, right? I'll put it this way. The best research that's come out on the value of higher education, the value of an undergraduate degree in particular, came out of alumni. It was published in 2015. It was Gallup and Purdue University who came together and they surveyed alumni from many, many different generations, people who just graduated, people who graduated 50 years ago, and they said, what's the value of college? And they came back with what they called the Big Six. And none of them were class. It was experience and support. Experience was I had an internship that allowed me to go and unfurl my professional tools and build confidence, right? It was I was very involved in extracurricular activities. It was I had a semester or a project that took me a semester or more to complete. We had the undergraduate and graduate symposiums recently. Those are perfect examples of people who did long work and deep work. That becomes imprinted on you. And then it was support. I had a professor who got me excited about learning. I am sitting next to one right now.
The relationships, the connection.
It is the connection. It's also that person empowering you and building confidence in you. And you go from the, I have to learn this, to, I need to learn how to do this better because now I know I can do this. In terms of support, I had people who knew my name and were glad I came. They recognized me as a person. And this one is probably most important for our moment right now. I had a mentor who talked about my hopes and dreams and helped me to operationalize that. And then that was different than faculty member. That was somebody else who offered professional mentoring to allow me to make sense of the chapters that are to come. So if you want to know what forced renovation looks like, we have to accept in higher education. And I know that when I'm saying this in front of all of you, there'll be people out there who watch this and go, I do not like that guy because he is telling us that it's different than what it was, what I came in. When I became a faculty member, what I'm describing were not the most important things. We're not at the moment when I became a faculty member.
And that's the difference.
We're at the moment when all of the students who are coming into the university are expecting these things of us. They need them from us, and they need all of us to be able to deliver them. So what does forced renovation looks like? It looks like us changing our mindset and starting to use our skills, abilities, expertise to deliver learning in a way that achieves all of those things. It's much, much more experiential learning, right? It's much more an education of the head and the hands. And I will unapologetically share that with all of you because I think it needs to be shared with everyone. And do I think that most universities are getting those things right now? No. Why can't we?
There you go. Why can't we lead?
Why
can't we lead in that
Why
area?
can't we?
We will.
We're at a moment where we are actually in the position to just run toward what's needed most. We have nothing to lose.
And you're the president. We can do it.
I am the president.
We can do it, right?
It's day 2, so
Well, I think I know your tagline. Why can't we?
why can't we?
I love that. I love that. So just thinking about some of the initial conversations that you've been having. I know you've been talking to students, faculty, staff, and we got a heads up, regarding some big announcement today. But what are some initial plans that you have that you want to share with our viewers?
That's good. When you started a university presidency, I'm luckily in the position where I've done this before. So I probably know more about presidential transitions than anybody else on campus. The first thing you do is study the data. I've done that because the data doesn't lie to you.
And you've been studying us for a long time.
Oh, you bet. Months. I mean, I've been connected to EMU without pause for a long time, but in earnest, once I started getting touched about this job, really studying the types of things that you need to be equipped as a president. And then I started really studying the data in a more in-depth fashion after I was appointed, because people lie to you, data doesn't.
This is true.
And
It's true.
you're president enough and you know that's true. And then you start studying the people. Because that's what makes up an institution. So I have been spending the last few weeks since we arrived back in Michigan talking to people, especially students. We heard so much about the experience that they were having. Why wouldn't we spend most of our time talking to the people who pay to be here rather than the ones who are paid to be here? And that was incredibly enlightening. And after a couple weeks, you start to hear the same things over and over. And once you start to hear the same things, you go, those are my first targets. I can make those things simpler for you, easier. I can take away obstacles, and we're going to go and do that. There is no reason to wait. There's no reason to hope that they're going to change their minds. Those are the things that are on their minds, and let's go and take those actions swiftly, because they expect that. And they expect that out of every service in their life. Why would we be any different? The second comes to the really shaping the university around the people who shape the experience for students. So during the month of April, I'm going to try to finish during the month of April to get to meeting with every unit individually across the entire university. It takes a long time. It's a practice I've done in all of my previous presidencies. It's much more helpful to me than it is to everybody else, because you really get to know the consciousness of what's happening and kind of where things are festering and where opportunity is. It's just a risk and opportunity assessment, but a lot of input. That will allow for us to get aligned philosophically, attitudinally, and in terms of mindset for the work ahead. and the work ahead's going to look vastly different than, if you think the last 2 or 3 years were a whirlwind, just wait. Higher ed's not going to get less complex at all, and we need to be on offense during this period.
I love how you're listening to students. And for you, you've made it clear that no issue is too small. Obviously, you deal with the large ones, but you told me a story about a waffle maker.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Can you share that?
I went to that's so funny. I went to the Cummings. I've gone through, I wander through the entire institution, and but when I go in, I just kind of check every closet because I want to see condition of buildings and where people live and just where things are making sense. But then I go and see how are the students experiencing it. So I will often just hold meetings in different buildings across campus. I wandered into the Commons. I was going through every single dining facility while they were operating, so I understood how students are seeing it. And we had a student who looked at me and went, "You're the president." And
You're like, you're the president.
I
Yeah.
went, "I am. Clearly, I'm the only guy in a suit in the Commons." But she said, "You're the president." I said, "Yeah." And we sat down for a few minutes, and I just went, "Tell me about your experience. Tell me what's working and what's not working." Those are great questions to start off with. I'm going to celebrate next year. I'll celebrate my 30th wedding anniversary with Tressa Kelly. I can assure you, many conversations have started with, "Hey, what's not working? How can I be better here?" And that's usually where I start with students and with anybody. It's just, let's talk about our weaknesses first. Let's talk about what's not working, because that's the stuff that's top of mind for you. And while she was happy with the vast majority of her experience at EMU, there were things top of mind. And one of them was the position of the waffle maker. Now,
Talking to the president of the University about a waffle maker.
I'm
but that's good.
I'm 6'5". I can navigate around a waffle maker pretty much anywhere, right? Within reason. But you could easily see, for somebody like my spouse, who is arguably over 5'2", and I'm going to use arguably because when she sees this, that'll be half funny. If you put something too far back or you put something a little too high, you can no longer manipulate it in the same way, which means you've just turned off a whole bunch of your end user consumers from this experience that you were trying to provide them. So we have to focus on effectiveness, not just like kindness or we checked the box. So when you put a waffle maker, when it's inaccessible to some of our end user consumers, then we failed. We didn't successfully give them the experience of waffles. We failed to give them access to it in the right way. It's a small detail that means everything to them, which is the same reason why we go after these seemingly small things. But from a student experience, I look at it like this. If I walk into the student center and I found, I walked into Starbucks and there's no line, and I order a coffee and it comes quickly and then I leave, I've had a great day at the student center, except I had a real challenge parking. Parking was inaccessible, so now I'm kind of coming in, and I had this nice experience at Starbucks, but it was offset by my negative experience outside. Or if I walk up to the door and it's locked, or the first 3 doors are locked for no reason at all, but I have to walk to the 4th door. All of these are these little negative experiences that I go, we didn't have to create. Why were those first 3 doors locked? Because there's some policy or procedure that somebody came up with that said, this makes a lot of sense. But if it doesn't make sense to the end user consumer, then what are we doing? All of those little things adding up, if they're positives, my overall experience is positive. I get a boost from that person at the gas station who's just nice behind the counter, just like I get taken down by the person behind the counter who's just kind of nasty to me for no reason at all. My hope is that we focus on all of those little things and make them as important as the big things, and then the whole of your experience is more intuitively positive because all of the dots get connected. I know that's a tall order because we don't have control over all of those things. We're not going to get better unless we say they're important and we're all going to collectively pay attention to them and try to create positive change on that front.
Absolutely. I love this. Isn't that a great story?
Because I think it connects the wellness of the waffle maker's access and these little things that chip away. And what you're getting at is nervous system regulation, where the students walking into a building and the door is really heavy and they have physical differences. And it's like annoying. Now they're in class, they're annoyed. And also they connect the door to the rest of their life. And that's what students are going to be like, I hate this building because of that single door. And that's what you have to listen to, is like making the things just easier. It's just the simple things. And I love that she was like, hey, President, we're going to talk about the waffle maker. And you heard what she was saying. Yeah, you listened of like what she's saying is like, this is just bums me out. And when students go on their orientations, they're going to ask, how's the food?
Yes, they are.
That's like just a basic thing.
And we know our students' opinions on dining right now. And we've talked about that. You know, I'm meeting with all of the leadership at Chartwell's in a couple of weeks to address all of these issues. And the waffle maker is one that we can locally address, but I want those types of service experiences on their leadership agenda too. Your assessment was so much more sophisticated than mine too.
No, I mean, it's like I hear the wellness. It's like, you know, if a student has to walk 5 more minutes to get to the place that sells more vegan food or gluten-free or whatever, that's like little stressors of their day. And what if it's just didn't need to be there? And we all experience it, but I think sometimes it's just like, well, that's just normal. But like my day can be ruined trying to go to certain stores and I'm circling around where I'm like, I just want to leave now.
I just want to leave. And I don't look at it as ruined. Just it's harder and sometimes silently harder because I don't even know that there's an alternative. Let's make alternatives. When somebody has something that's simple to fix, just fix it. And let's fix it at the lowest level possible in the organization. One of the things I've discovered is we seem to have to escalate problem solving at our institution right now. And I don't understand that. Like, if I'm a PR student, I should have my number one problem solver right here. You know, it's funny. I was speaking at a graduate class at another institution a few years ago. A faculty member had invited me in, and it was graduate class. They were really looking at educational leadership. And, you know, I kind of came in, I started, and a young woman walks in, maybe 10 minutes late, sits down. Once I finish my remarks, we get to Q&A. We get through like the third or fourth question, and she goes, ooh. And I said, I'm sorry, what's wrong? And she goes, I apologize. I didn't realize you're the president. Because she had come in late. She said, I feel like I've insulted you by not knowing who you are. And I said, listen, I'm the least important person you need to know at the university. I said, let me take that from this perspective. If you'll see me at commencement, or if you've done something really well or really terrible, all right? Those are guarantees. I said, maybe the provost. I mean, you might see at like an award ceremony, you know, but these are people who are doing work that is background work that is foundational to the institution. I said, now, if you're dean, you have a problem. You might see your dean. You might meet the dean. You might have more interactions at a reception or something. I said, department chair, they can actually solve a problem for you, you know, class schedule or whatnot. I said, so if that's the case, and I pointed to the faculty member, I said, she's the most important person you need to know because she is the one who can solve your problems, create opportunities for you, all of those wonderful things. Now, we have to create a support scaffold for that. But when we talk about these roles are always in service to others. People ask me all the time, like, oh gosh, you know, like, what are your tastes in food, or what color should this be? And I go, it's whatever's best for the institution. Right? Like, how is the audience going to receive it? If we all adopt that mindset, man, life is less complicated, isn't it?
Yeah, I like that
And
mindset.
I love how you were willing to shake up a structure to make things make sense and to make them student friendly. I was reading the other day about a high-end hotel chain that has a $2,000 policy. And that means every employee is empowered
to make a change for the consumer, for the good of the consumer, up to $2,000. Just do it, right? Just do it. And that's exactly what you're talking about. Changing, not $2,000, but changing that structure.
No, we don't have
so that-
2,000.
We don't have $2,000. But
We're working toward it. We're working toward
but
it.
changing the structure so that everyone is empowered to solve a student's problem. I mean, you said it yourself in another conversation. It's not sending a student to another office to get their problem solved. It's what?
You just do it for them.
You just do it for them.
just do
And
it
that's
for
what
them.
you're talking about.
Why would I walk a student over to another office and drop them off and go, oh, I did a great job? Maybe I don't know how to solve a financial aid problem. I can call and I can be your Sherpa, right? I know the right administrators to call, and if I don't, I just call my supervisor, and then my supervisor will figure, right? We can go down the chain, and that student can just sit there and have a glass of water while we take care of that work. And I know it makes it simpler when you say it that way, but we've got to have better resources around just general problem solvers. So that if you're a faculty member and you go, well, this really is outside of my area of expertise, let's not guess and go to the right office. There should be just a handoff, same way there is at a hotel, right? I'm handing this off to the manager, and the manager's job is to solve the problem, and solving the problem is decreasing my anxiety.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let's talk about anxiety.
Yeah.
And mental health a little bit. Mental health a little bit. When I shared with you Aisha's research, you were really excited at a section that talked about normalizing mental health and therapy. Can you talk about your research a little
Absolutely.
bit?
So
and how it
last summer,
connects?
through the Summer Research Activity Award, I had the opportunity to interview students who had viewed Enlighten U episodes. And so one of the big things came up was normalizing mental health. And what I love about the generation and our students who watch is that it becomes more normal to be like, oh, I have anxiety. Oh, I have ADHD. And people are like, oh, I think I do too. And so hearing particularly one thing they liked of the podcast is the peer engagement of, we always say, here are the resources, are amazing, but to hear a student that you may see in class, you may see in Commons, talk about that, they're like, oh, this feels more normal, because sometimes they think the faculty is scary. And they're like, as faculty, like, come talk to us, listen. And they're like, I don't know you. And you're evaluating me at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And so there's a power dynamic. And so it was really helpful to see that students understood that our perspective of listening to them, just like your own mission. And the summer, I had the opportunity through another Summer Research Activity Award to interview our guests and what is their experience behind the mic of sharing their story. And so it always relates back to wellness and therapy, but this narrative therapy of the healing to share your story. And that's something I'm just really proud that Enlighten U, that we can have this roundabout way of supporting our viewers, supporting our guests, and sharing this experience.
Yeah.
I love
having
that.
real
Yeah.
conversations.
I love that.
Yeah.
That goes right along with the big six too, because I want people to know me as a person. It's like I just want to be seen as who I am in the environment that I've chosen to belong in. That's what a university is supposed to be. And it's interesting you say that. I was having a conversation with a group of students, a couple Fridays ago, and and we were talking about this very issue. I think you and I talked about it. I had a student who I ran into on campus at another university, and I asked him how he was doing, and he goes, I'm feeling great. He said, I just got out of a session with my therapist. I'm just
the joy.
I just feel fantastic. But the fact that he was so open with sharing that, I went, that was wonderful. I had the same experience here.
Did you?
Yeah, students said the same thing. And she said, I just had a great session with my therapist. And I said, was it great? Like, you feeling good? She goes, I actually feel great. I went, this is the environment that we should be in.
Yeah. I mean, beginning of my classes, I give the long list of mental health issues I've dealt with. And my students come up like, oh, thank you for sharing that. I have bipolar. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then invite them to the podcast, because I think it helps them when they're feeling anxious and having trouble completing a paper, just to say, hey, I'm having anxiety. And students will reach out like, hey, where can I go get therapy or medication? And then checking in with them. And I know not all faculty are prepared to have that support, but like you said, we need to be prepared. That's where our students are. They want to share their highs and lows, and having folks that can respond and not just say, yeah, go talk to them. I'm not a trained professional, but you're someone who can provide compassion, regardless if you're not a trained professional.
Oh, and you might be the person who can connect them to that resource. That's why I go, we got to have the right problem-solving resources so that that's easy for faculty and staff members to do.
And you've been connected to mental health and committed to helping students with their mental health a long time. When you were in University of West Virginia, you had a chief wellness officer.
Yeah, University of West Georgia. Yep.
University of West Georgia, one of 5 or so in the country.
We
in
were,
that,
yep.
in
We
that
were the
position?
5th university in the country to do that.
Yeah.
So that is a critical part. And a lot of that was learned at other universities where we were trying to help students who were in crisis. And then you realize how ill-equipped you are. Right? I was so grateful to have known the right people to hand students off to, who are like you, a person who has the expertise and to provide help. I believe that wellness is critical. I actually was I was in the Cummings again the other day talking to a group of 8th graders. It was like a girls empowerment group, and they had invited me over to just make some remarks. 8th grade females are not that interested in the university president, but I did say, listen, they had requested to come to a university campus, and luckily we had the relationships in place to make that happen. And I said, I hope that in 3 years, when you're making a choice about what happens next in your life, and it will just fly by, I hope that we're going to be the university that's first on your list. But if you want to put yourself in the position to do that, like get into good habits, right? It's treat sleep like an activity. Get good sleep. Have rich relationships. Make sure you eat good food that's good for your body.
Learn it now. Don't wait till your 30s. Yes! Don't wait till your 30s in my case.
It was like exercise. If you do those 4 things, life is a lot better for everybody. And I say that in such a committed fashion because of that wellness mission and all of the incredible people we were exposed to. When you're coming out of COVID and we had college students who had been, isolated for so long, we had to figure out when we were at West Georgia, what is the most important next thing that we could be doing? And I have an incredible colleague, Bridget Stewart, who's faculty member at University of West Georgia. And she's brilliant and just came to me and said, I think I've got a solution to this problem. Let's create an environment where wellness is top of mind, where we actually talk very openly about those things, where we put a performance station into one of the dining halls that has lean protein and high fiber, and we'll direct that to student athletes, right? So we always have one of these meals that student athletes would want to go and take advantage of at the direction of coaches and nutritionists and whatnot. But then it becomes the most popular station on campus because students are like, I'm taking possession of my own life. And having a chief wellness officer allowed us to do that on campus, but it also, we purchased like an ice cream truck, but a big one, so that we could do biometric testing and screenings out in populations that had less access to healthcare, especially in rural communities. We had a partnership with Resilient Georgia, specifically focused on mental health, and that was to build up resources in under-resourced regions of the state. And they worked in those segments, and we became a key partner in that. All of that stemmed out of us just committing ourselves to the fact that wellness, different than healthcare, is critical to all of us. And maybe we're at a moment in time where people want to be more accepting of how important that is.
Yeah. So in terms of, because that's a brilliant story. I love that. It would be lovely to
It's
have
Bridget Stewart.
Bridget's
all
story.
right?
Bridget's
And
story.
a whole
Yeah.
bunch of other,
I
whole
love
bunch of other
that.
brilliant people. I'm just the guy who said absolutely.
What would you say are some of the biggest challenges universities are facing in terms of supporting students in their mental well-being?
Oof, that's a long list. Biggest challenges, I know people would want to say it's counseling resources, and I would actually start with process, policy, and service. I think universities are artificially complicated, and we make it that way. And, when I was officially brought on yesterday, I mean, I articulated, do what's right for the student and then make it work for us. And I know that everybody goes, oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, we want to do that. But then one day I look at you and say, you're the one who has to change. Yeah. You have to change the way you might teach public relations. We might have to change a policy that you have said no to so many things because of that policy. And now I'm going to say, well, that policy didn't matter in the first place. And you go, wait a second, my reputation has been built on that. But it wasn't about how you feel about it or how I feel about it. Our service model doesn't make sense. I mean, Verizon's an international company, and they only need one phone number, and we need 2,000.
That makes sense. Yeah.
If you want to increase people's anxiety, you really want to put students into an initial state where they go, I don't have control over the environment or understand how to navigate it. Public university is a great place to start. And that's not unique to Eastern Michigan. It's just something that we've kind of accepted. And then you get to resources. We always, when we talk about this issue, we talk about, kind of the crisis moments. Or we talk about the general feeling of students. And I go, we can go back to those micro interactions, and we can decrease a lot of anxiety by just having service excellence, having simpler processes where we take out steps and we just say it's the exact minimum number of steps to get anything done, if that's our goal. And we get rid of policies that, I suspect we wrote to serve us, or some leader wrote to serve some particular thing. I mean, that's getting rid of policies is one of the most gratifying, freeing thing you could possibly
Why
do.
is there this barrier? If a student needs like emergency student aid, it's like, well, you have to prove your income and your parents. But then, for example, our students in Magic, they may be in foster care. They don't have the access, financial aid. It's a government policy. It's like all these things, like, does it need to be a policy?
And that's the right question to ask. Where's the root of it? That's how I always ask. Where's the root? And the root, if the root is in the federal government, when we talk about financial aid, there are a certain number of federal rules and federal regulations that are going to manage somebody's, what they can receive, and then what their contribution would be, right? Okay, so that's a root. Now, there, in almost every institution that I've been in, there are these other pieces. Now, these are not part of the root, but we add them in institutionally, sometimes because we don't really understand the federal regulations. We just think we understand. We learned them 3 years ago, but we didn't go back and relearn them as they've changed. So we're working on assumptions, and it's creating complications for students, and we believe we're doing the right thing. But we have to take the extra step and constantly ask, do I actually need all of these steps, and do I need to be doing the work in the same way? That puts pressure on us. But again, these are jobs for us. We're supposed to be doing that work. You're supposed to every year go back and go, all right, so are we still teaching public relations in a way that is relevant to the way the world is now? I mean, it's not that long ago where all of a sudden you were like, well, social media is kind of thing that's happening over here. And then all of a sudden you go, I need to go and learn a bunch of new things so that I can provide students with what they need. All of that's interconnected from my vantage point. We're in a tough business. And we're in a complicated business. And over the coming years, that's going to become a little more complicated because a lot of those pieces where the roots lived for a while, those roots are being moved right now.
We're almost out of time. And only because I would stay here with you. We would stay here with you forever. But we know you can't stay here with us forever. So we're not going to keep you much longer. But I do have a couple more questions, and maybe you guys have one. You have a big job. How do you manage your mental health? Should I have a conversation with Dr. Thrasher?
Yes. That's probably your right next guest. That's a good question. I've gotten a lot of great training and guidance from colleagues who have expertise in wellness and in mental health that have helped to make me more resilient. I have skin as thick as a rhino, so I'm used to silliness. But you're right; these jobs are a lot. Sleep, and Tressa Kelly is probably the best monitor of those things. But really, sleep. I work out every morning. And that's a habit I got into so that I could become more resilient and make certain that I was energized to meet the day. And for me, it was two things. One, my body felt stronger and I felt ready to go and jump into the world. And two, I believe very strongly in eat your frogs first. If that's the thing you don't want to do it right when you wake up.
I've never heard that, but I love it. Eat your frogs first.
Just do it. Yeah. If you do the hard things first. I try to consume things that provide energy, good whole food, just nutritious food. I have old friends. It's one of the great things about coming to Eastern Michigan. I have old friends. I have alumni who I graduated with who don't really care that I'm president, right? Because for them, I'm just Brendan, and and you don't get to have new friends in these jobs in the same way because you're always part of the job. Close relationships with my kids who are all over the place, but I mean, those three and their spouses, our granddaughter, they're just the most special thing in our life. And that's, if you really want to maintain mental health in a job like this, remember on the front end that the day you start, which for me was yesterday, is a countdown clock. You have to understand, begin with the end in mind, because it will end. And I'm the executive head of the new President's Academy for the American Association of State Colleges and Universities. So I help to develop new presidents who are just coming into office for the first time at public universities across the country every year. And I always tell them that first. You think today that, your jokes are actually that funny. And that you're the smartest person in the room and every idea you have is great because everybody goes, oh, yeah, right, it's because you're the president. But when you've left those jobs, you understand all of the fleeting pieces that are just the job. They're not you. If you can separate those two, it's easier. It takes your ego out of it so that you can really I wake up in the morning, and for me, it really, I get so excited about working on behalf of the students we're in service to, which is why I go out and talk to them so often. And I mentor 10 or 12 students at a time, professional mentor, because I don't teach in the classroom, right? We all should. Those things build resilience for me. I don't know how other people do it. I mean, I will throw in, I do like wine. So that's helpful too. Just, let's be, I am from Flint, so.
There you go. There it is.
So if anybody ever wants to, sit and have a glass of wine, we can do it that way too.
That's a great invitation.
We'll have to invite you back with a bottle of wine. So my question changed after you were talking, and I'm thinking, wow, because like you said, I'm all for change, but after a while, things do change and people move on, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So, my question to you is legacy. What kind of legacy do you want to leave after you're gone years from now? How do you want to be remembered?
That is not up to me. I carry my children are my legacy, right? That's how they remember me when I'm no longer here. That matters to me. When you leave a university, though, especially when you leave a university in this job, we have universities all over the country, buildings named after former presidents and all kinds of stuff. Here's what I know is important. The people you got to work with, for better or for worse, that mattered, right? Mattered to them and it mattered to you. And when it's for the better, man, those teams are amazing. Some of the most cherished relationships that I have in my whole life are the people I've been able to work with, where we got to go and do unbelievable things at universities. Unbelievable things, which we never could have done if not for that team. And we all still text each other and call each other and connect and just go, wasn't that awesome? And then the students who you got to serve. Because there are students graduating from universities that I've been president at who don't know who I am and do not care. That's okay. You know what they do care about? The person who's in service to them. My successors are sitting there caring about those people, giving them opportunities. That's what matters. And then after you're gone, the university moves on, and it moves on like that. It was never about you. It was always about them. So let's just start there so that we never have to answer that question, because it really shouldn't be an important one outside of, did people take positive things in their life away from you having been part of it? I view it that way only because I have left presidencies, and I know how unimportant that variable actually is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. We've got to get you out of here, but I do have one more question for you. You're so student-centered, so focused on their experience. You've recently, second day on the job, changed 2 major policies in these university practices: parking and commencement. Can you tell us about that? And it's not just
I haven't heard yet. I'm so excited.
Those are just here. Those are universities all over, and you're making some big changes.
It is. Well, I hope they're not looked at as big. I hope they're just looked at as like, like we should do that. Commencement ceremonies are about students and families. That's what they're about. They're about students and families, and how their guest experience is and how much they get to celebrate. And we have plenty of excess capacity in the Gervin Game Above Center during commencement. I watched several commencements and I went, we've got capacity. There's no reason for us to have limits on tickets. And we had limits on tickets. Most people don't need lots and lots of tickets. They just need the specific number they need for their family. So why can't we just do that? Is there a scenario where somebody asks for something that we can't supply? Sure. But let's get to that scenario instead of build the structure with the limitation. I've done the same thing at other universities and we never had a problem. The only issue that we might have to hold an extra commencement. Okay, that's inconvenient for us, but not for them. And I will tell you, when the arena is filled with people who are celebrating graduates, it is such a rich experience. So yeah, we're going to go and experiment, explore, and if we don't get it 100% right this time, we'll get it 100% right next time. And on parking, parking was a major issue on people's minds. I wasn't here for any of that. But look, at the day you are in charge, you're in charge of everything, whether you invented it or not. And we can quickly make parking easier. I called Chief last week and said, tell me why we can't do these 2 things. And he said, these were on my list to come and talk to you about tomorrow. So this is,
Love that.
He was already way ahead of me. So yes, we eliminated the need for spring and summer parking passes for 2026. It's a different time of year, and there's going to be plenty of parking. We eliminated the restrictions on overnight parking, especially for guests. I mean, I had a student who said, I can't, if somebody wants to come over to campus, they can't because it's illegal for them to park. And I'm, what are you talking about? And then I called Chief and he said, it is. So we changed that. And then the lot right next to Alexander, which the Ford lot, which has been a pay lot, we're going to open that up to, if you have a commuter tag or a residential tag, you'll be able to park in that lot too. And that was Chief, because Chief had said, I hate going over to that corner and seeing that empty lot and people driving around in a full lot across the street while we have, 82 or 84 spots available. Listen, if we get into a different position in a year and we have to change things, okay. But why not just change the structure now, make it more convenient for people? So there's more to come. As we see simple problems to solve, let's just go solve them.
I love it. Can I ask a quick follow-up? Commencement, is it this year?
Yes.
I'm very excited because my students are like, I have 6 tickets. Like, who am I going to invite?
Right.
And even one of our guests, Kalisa, a couple months ago, will graduate in a couple years, and she has so much community of who wants to come, and she's already like, oh my God, so I'm gonna text her immediately after this to be like, because she helps kids get into college for 8th graders and explore like you're talking about, and this is huge.
Yeah, and we don't know exactly what demand's going to be, but I'm going to tell you, every single student who's going to be sitting on that floor is going to be better accommodated via this method than they were in a structure the way we had it.
Dr. Brendan Kelly, again, welcome to EMU. Thank you so much for sitting down with us. I can't imagine ending on a higher note than those 2 initiatives that I think speak to exactly what you're about and the changes that you're going to make at this university.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
so
you
much.
all.
Thank
This
you.
is great.
Lolita, I am so excited about Dr. Kelly and his plans for the university. He has said from day one that fall is going to look a lot different for students, and I'm really excited.
Oh my goodness, the energy that he has already brought to this campus, and he's not been officially president for a month yet, but with that energy and his experience and his leadership and his student-focused initiatives, I can only imagine what those changes will be. All I know is we're going to love them.
Oh my gosh, I
Love
can't
it.
wait. Can't wait. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Enlighten U. We really are grateful to Dr. Kelly for taking this time to sit down with us today, for funding this podcast for another season, and for his commitment to improving mental health.
Oh my gosh, yes we are. So be sure to watch our final episode of this season next month, and then join us again in September. Well, that's it for this one. As always, thank you so much for watching and listening to Enlighten U. And please, don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and share it with others. Till next time, take care of yourself and take care of one another. Y'all be good.